What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Ash Vibe Show. My name is Millie Karras.
My name is Pt2.
And it's where you come to
Vibe with the Tribe.
Today we're jumping into the second part of the complete lore of the Spirit Blossom event. It should be good. The first half was interesting. I think we left off on Rost, which I don't really know. Or is it Thresh? Thresh will be the first one, then Ari. Okay, yeah, the Yasuo Yone, that's one I'm like really interested in.
Same.
Yeah. Honestly, Lilia too. Honestly, everyone. Ari. Yeah, everyone, to be honest. So, we're not going to say too much. You guys already saw the last part of this, so we're just going to jump into the episode. I'm also going to look at the comments from the last video and just, maybe jump into some other things towards the end of the video, just to kind of address some of that, since we actually had the time to do that this time. So, yeah.
Yep. Let's get to it.
Interestingly enough, when you meet Thresh, he
Thresh's
doesn't
design
want to
is
straight
dope.
up kill you,
Yeah,
as
it
many
is.
would expect. Instead, he realized we were lost, and so he offered us protection. What's cool is that when you tell Thresh that it is time for the Spirit Blossom Festival, he randomly mentions that the last time he talked to Time, he attempted to hinder his collection. But because Time had a capital T, that means that Thresh just revealed that there is a godly being that controls time, just like Kindred are death. Unfortunately, we don't get to learn who Time is. But it is a really cool teaser for a possible character coming in the
Victor.
future. Who knows,
Yeah.
maybe Zillion is also getting a Spirit Blossom skin. Also, Thresh mentioned that he had done something bad to Time, so that Time could learn his place. And now, Time only works in the physical realm, which is a cool fact on its own. However, this could also be a really clever reference to the fact that time flows chaotically in the spirit realm. We learned that from Ari later on. And this might be because Thresh did something to it, and time left the spirit realm. Anyway, because we were lost, Thresh decided to show us his home. When we get there, we arrive at the river lit by lanterns, which you may remember from Teemo's part. Here Thresh explains that he sees all spirits as his children, which he wants to protect. But funnily enough, this also indirectly makes Thresh a daddy. Thresh then explains that he is forced to look like an evil demon in a mask because he lacks some of his powers. And that's because someone had stolen away some of the spirits which he protected. Without them, Thresh can't hold this less
A lot of
demonic
people were talking
form
about
for
Thresh
long.
Daddy, and I thought they were
But
talking
even
about
though it is
something else.
obvious that Thresh could use our help, he tells us not to bother. We already got lost, and he didn't want to use us for his personal problems on top of that. So yes, out of all the spirits we get to talk to, Thresh is actually the nicest guy. Of course, because we had nothing better to do, we offered to help Thresh, at least by leading some of the nearby lost souls to his lair. The next time we return to Thresh's lair, with a few spirits in our hands, Thresh is very happy to see us. And for helping him, he decided to tell us about himself. He revealed that some
the
saw
most
him as a
positive I've
guardian,
ever seen
but
in
he
Thresh.
saw himself as a
Very,
father,
very
a
positive.
caretaker of souls. The living believe that their deceased lost ones find safety in the spirit realm, and Thresh is making sure that stays true. But recently, another spirit with their own agenda started interfering with Thresh's goodwill. He knows they probably don't do it out of evil intentions, but they just believe they know better than him. But what was worse, someone stole Thresh's lantern. Of course, I don't have to tell you who stole it, because we have already seen this part of the story from their perspective. Anyway, Thresh used this lantern as a beacon which led the lost souls to him. So without it, his children would be in danger. And so, it was us who went into the woods to find the lantern. And here is where the brilliant part comes in. Remember how Teemo left us waiting for him for months? And then when he came back he explained what happened during his prank on Thresh? Well, here we get to see it from the other perspective. As we search for the lantern, we start hearing a really annoying high-pitched laugh. And then we see it. The lantern is just sitting there. But as soon as we touch it, it explodes in a puff of smoke that smells like mushrooms. Then Teemo trolls us by being completely silent, even as we talk to him. So then, out of desperation, we offer to fist bump him. Only for Teemo to offer his palm. And so, we make scissors out of our hand, and we beat him at a rock scissors paper game. The brilliant part is that if you go back, this exact scene was described in Teemo's story too. After this, because we beat Teemo at a fair game, he let us have the lantern, and we return to Thresh. There, inside Thresh's home, the lantern starts glowing, and it fills the entire room with light, for Thresh's children have returned. But then Thresh noticed that we look worried, and so he immediately turned his attention to us, asking us what's happening. Then we get to ask him who made him suffer. And so, Thresh reveals even more about the lore of the spirit realm. He told us that once, the entire spirit realm lived in harmony under Thresh's guidance. But then came a little fox. Where she came from, Thresh didn't know, but she was a natural charmer. It was quite a while ago, and only time knew when she appeared. Once again, time with a capital T. At first, the fox was a friend with Thresh, and they explored the spirit realm together. They were both helping souls, and in general they were similar in many ways. Still, there was one difference between them. Thresh wanted to protect the souls, but the fox believed that the souls were able to survive alone. At first, Thresh wanted to believe her, and he trusted her. But over time, he couldn't imagine the innocent lost ones without a guidance, each carrying their suffering into death. To this day, Thresh sees letting the fox have her way as the greatest mistake he had ever made. He then mentions that he would do anything to protect the roaming souls that followed Ari, which gave us the perfect opportunity to offer our help, which Thresh greatly appreciated. And so we ventured into the woods to collect as many souls which followed Ari as possible. But to make the task easier, Thresh trusted us so much, he gave us his own hook and lantern. Then, the moment we see the first wild spirit, we try to hit it with the hook, but we miss. And the spirit realm literally pings us with a yellow question mark. Then we try again, we land the hook, and we capture the first spirit inside the lantern. After a while, we return to Thresh with a lantern full of souls, which were originally led by Ari, and Thresh couldn't be happier. His home was filled with beautiful lights, and his children were safe. After this task, Thresh was so grateful, he decided to show us something no one else had seen before. And so, Thresh leaps over his river of souls and leaves his lantern behind. When we take the lantern, we get transported to Thresh's sanctuary, which is where Thresh shares his, and I quote, most intimate moments. Not only that, in this place, Thresh looks a lot manlier. Here, Thresh just thanks us for everything we have done for him, and he really appreciates our friendship. Later, he invites us to sit down, and his hand gently...
Hold on. hold on. Before we just getting deep, very deeper than I thought. Okay, so for you guys, question: this whole Thresh Daddy thing, is it because he's a father, or is it because this image? I need some answers in the comments, because I heard a bunch of people hyping like, oh yeah, wait until you get the Thresh Daddy. I was like, I immediately assumed it was like some type of sexual thing. You know what I mean? And then yeah, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. Y'all let me know. I would appreciate it.
Caresses our own. After that, instead of sending us home, Thresh invites us to stay with him in the spirit realm. However, there is no option to accept that offer. And so, with a heavy heart,
you know how many sad people? They're like, no option.
Story. Right. Now, since Ari was mentioned a lot here, let's go through hers next. Her storyline starts with her being just the fox. But as we follow her, she immediately recognizes that we are not a spirit, although she's not entirely sure what we are. Then she offers us to follow her to safety, or to stay here. It was our choice. After all, we just learned from Thresh that Ari believed that souls could survive on their own. As we follow her, we end up at a shrine, and the fox explains that this shrine was built for a beautiful woman who beckoned the dying to find peace. And then the fox transforms, revealing that she was the woman. She then introduces herself as Ari, and she explains that she is this realm's spirit of salvation. After that, she asks us if we remember how we got here. But regardless of what we say, we don't learn anything. Even if you say that you were chased by a clown, which might be an attempt to make surprise Fiddlesticks canon. Or it's a Shaco teaser.
Damn.
Anyway.
I've seen a lot of different, like, fox interpretations in, like, Asian lore.
Yeah.
But, like, I really like how her design looks, because it's only a single-tailed fox, too. Usually you'll have LC3, LC9, you'll see, you know what I mean, 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, right now she has, like, I don't know if this is multiple tails, it looks like it, but then when she turns into individual fox, it's like the one single tail. Yeah, I wonder what that's about. And this just keeps bringing me back to when we watched the Yasuo, what is that? I forgot what that cinematic. But yeah, when we watched those, and I was trying to figure out, is this Ari? And half the people are like, yeah, half the people are no. Now I kind of see why people are so confused. Like more than halfway through, and I'm still like, okay, so we're calling this Ari for the sake of the video, but this is not actually Ari because they're still in the physical world doing whatever. And then these are separate, like no-named people, or are these like, because time works differently? Is this like, you know, their spirits? They died at whatever point in their life. Their spirit came here, and then they can travel back and forth through time. You know what I'm saying? That's the part I still don't fully understand. Yeah, and the more we keep calling them Thresh and Ari and this and that, I'm just like, it's kind of getting me deeper and deeper in the confusion hole. So if you guys want to reattempt to try to explain that again, you know, now that we're getting like, you guys maybe are getting like refresh on knowledge and shit like that, then I would appreciate that.
Maybe they're just gonna kill off all the champions or the heroes
At some point.
at some point, and they're just gonna be this form in the future.
All right, and this is just future tense stuff. Shit. I don't know, man.
Then, Ari reveals that the reason why people often walk into this shrine, which was built in her image, was because the tail of the fox was quite common in the physical realm. And then we finally get to the part about the flow of time. She explained that time didn't flow here like it did in the physical realm. Here, the spirits were defined by the lives and the deaths of mortals, but nothing around them aged or changed. If you apply what she just said to the other spirits, this may actually explain why some spirits look weird. For example, Cassiopeia is a part snake because that's how people picture her. That's what Ari meant by saying that the spirits can't change themselves, but they can be defined by mortals. Anyway, Ari then explains why it's a problem that we don't know if we are alive. It's because we don't belong in this realm, and here time flows at a different rate. Years will go by days, decades by years. And by the time we return, the world will have changed. She then also points out that lately, the souls in the spirit realm were starting to get misdirected, and they ended up in the wrong appointed places in their afterlives. And so, Ari asked us to help her by finding some of those lost souls. At the end of this part, she mentions that she hopes that we will get out of here soon, because over time, we may end up turning into a demon. Which is a reference to what we learned from the other stories, that all the Arcana in this realm started as mortals, with the exception of Kindred. Speaking of which, the next time we meet Ari, we see she's talking to Kindred, but the moment they notice us, they run away. After this awkward interruption, Ari is grateful that we helped her by guiding some spirits to her, and she mentions that some spirits are lost to their obsessions, by which she is referencing Thresh. And she even reveals that some of these spirits turn into demons. She then reveals what she had learned from Kindred. Every year during the Spirit Blossom Festival, the veil between the two realms is the thinnest. But this year something changed. There is a large influx of souls that get sent here, and that got the attention of Thresh. Here I quickly want to point out that this large influx of souls pouring into the spirit realm was likely caused by Noxians trying to take over Ionia. Anyway, just like every spirit in every story so far, for some reason Ari was weakened. Somehow. So she couldn't fight Thresh, and leads the souls to safety. However, with more souls by her side, she might be strong enough, and so she asked us to go back into the woods and bring her even more souls. And we had to do it quickly. We couldn't stay in this realm for long. If the balance was thrown off, we could get stuck in a limbo. After collecting enough souls, we join Ari and we travel to Thresh's lair. Once we're there, Ari is hesitant, because she was always playing just one part of a larger game. But now she was supposed to be the hero of the spirit realm, and she wasn't even sure if she could beat Thresh. Interestingly though, I want to point out that here Ari called Thresh an obsessed king, which is a reference to the fact that once he ruled the realm. Anyway, after a bit of convincing, the two of us walk in and we finally meet Thresh. There, Thresh is just talking about how he wants to save all those poor lost souls. Which sounds like he's the bad guy, and he's mocking Ari. But after going through his story, we know he really means it. Strangely though, when Thresh talks to us, he's actually able to manipulate us into following him, and to a certain degree, he can control what we say. But thankfully, with all the collected souls, Ari was strong enough to unleash her true form. And so she demanded
Oh,
to
shit.
know why Thresh was taking all of those souls for himself.
Damn.
There, Thresh revealed that he was only protecting the souls because Ari was weak.
This reminds me of One Piece, the bunny girl, and she transforms into the beast. There's a bunny girl and the other girl. Yeah. And they transformed into like their more beastly form because of the moon and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ionia.
Yeah. But also, fuck, what was I about to say? One Piece got me distracted.
It's very sad.
I know.
Very dope. And I can't wait for that fight with Rob Lucci.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Let's not get sidetracked on that.
Okay.
That's a whole other great thing. Yeah, too much greatness. No, what I was gonna say, it's interesting that like around the time of the war, she got weakened, the bridge got thinner, and it says that they're creating demons here. What if like I don't know, I don't know where the demon that came out that went inside Swain's arm. I wonder if he like escaped out of here around like the Spirit Blossom Festival, because remember he got his arm in Ionia. I haven't read the story of like how he meets like the crow demon and stuff. But what if it escaped from the spirit realm around the Spirit Blossom time because he was in Ionia? That'd be crazy.
That would be
Crazy connection. But that's literally a random guess.
Didn't LeBlanc have something to do with his arm coming back?
That's the part. LeBlanc had to do with like Octocon and all that stuff.
Right.
But that's like Shurima. I couldn't remember because I thought she thought he died. Like everyone thought he died. I thought he went off and did his own thing, and then he came back to Noxus. So I don't know if
yeah,
she's I don't know if she's aware. I don't think so because even in I don't know. It's interesting because with Arcane and stuff where you see the crow at some point in the show, season 2, and then later you see the three-eyed crow, and it's like, okay, Swain has gotten his arm somewhere between there, and he's been watching over everything. It seems like LeBlanc was occupied doing other things, but there's also multiple LeBlancs and all kinds of shit, so who knows?
He was happy to go back and focus on his half of the spirit realm. But then Ari started demanding more. She wanted all the souls Thresh claimed to be free, which Thresh was willing to do, under one condition. Once he freed them, the souls would be allowed to find their way back home on their own. Should they become lost, Thresh and Ari would have a chance to lure them in. This scene ends with Ari being confused again. She wasn't sure how she awakened this powerful form, but she guessed it might have been because of us. The next time we meet Ari, she is still in her powerful form, but she was just done helping another spirit find peace. Then, when she notices us, she swaps back to her normal form, and finally she reveals that while we were away, she found out that we were actually alive, and that we weren't supposed to be in the spirit realm yet. She then points out that right now we were on a special beach, where spirits feel at ease after their long lives. But it was also the place where spirits first arrived. Then she noted that she feels at ease around us. Not just because all of the things we have done for her, but also because we have helped a lot of other souls find peace. After that, regardless if you flirt with Ari or not, she kisses you on the cheek and simply disappears. Now, with most of the spirits covered, let's move on to the last normal one before we get to the two brothers. So now, on to Lilia. Lilia kinda became famous by asking us why are we wearing clothes, at literally the first moment you meet her. Of course, she asked you that because the souls in the spirit realm don't need clothes, which made Lilia think that perhaps we are alive. Anyway, because Lilia felt uncomfortable around clothed spirits, we get at least partially naked. After that, we follow Lilia into the woods. Eventually, we end up in a burned forest. And Lilia explains that this forest is a reflection of one in the physical realm. This might be a totally blind reach, but the only known Ionian forest that became ruined was the one that protected Omikayalan, the world tree at the heart of the world. So perhaps this burned forest is the spiritual reflection of that place. Anyway, right after that, a flaming spirit approaches us. But Lilia tells us to calm down, because this was just one of the tree's nightmares. She then explained that all the burned trees around us were actually not trees. They were the souls of all humans, animals and plants who got burned to death. And now they were stuck here, lost in obsession.
That's crazy.
Then Lilia asks us for help. We don't really know what she needs to do, but we learn that together we'll have to face death. Apparently, when the forest burned, death took everything from Lilia. And that's why she was happy to have us around. We were the first friends she found in quite some time. Then Lilia tells us that she wants to face death because she wants to take back everything she had lost. After that, Lilia gives us a stick that came from one of the burnt trees. She did it because the trees told her to do it. The stick had buds on it that were yet to bloom. And according to Lilia, the stick was good for hitting people or poking them. And so, armed with a stick, Lilia nudged us into a pool of water
reminds me
that
of, Legend of
transported us
Zelda.
directly to death.
Let's have a stick
Keep in
and
mind
just
that Lilia was too
swing it
scared to
around.
meet death herself, so we got here alone. When death finally meets us, the lamb explained that it is true that they took all the souls. But after that, it was the fox who guided the souls and let them all find peace. So, in reality, all the souls already found peace. In fact, they were probably not in the trees anymore. But Lilia was still stuck in an endless loop of obsession. She clung onto the memories of the burned forest, because that's all she had left. The lamb then tells us to return to Lilia with the stick. If we hurried, we would be able to save her. And so, we run back to Lilia as fast as we can, and we try to explain the situation. Unfortunately, Lilia doesn't get it, and she tries to argue back that she can still hear the souls. Under one tree, she could hear a girl who was proud she lost her first tooth. She wanted to show her grandmother, but then she got enveloped by smoke, and she fell asleep. Under a different tree, Lilia heard an old man who always left an offering at Lilia's shrine. He wanted to become a crane, so he could eat fish even without teeth, but he too got claimed by the fires. Lilia heard many more dreams like these. It was birds,
See
people,
the face
even the
in the
water.
tree?
Lilia then
Face
pointed
right
out
there and
that
over
she was the forest itself. She loved its denizens like her own children, and helping them made her bloom. But now it was quiet, and she could only hear the dreams. When we tell her that death told us that Lilia was stuck in her nightmare, lost in obsession, it takes Lilia a while till she realizes that this would mean that she would be asleep. And all the dreams she was hearing would actually be just her own dreams. After this realization, the branch she gave us started to bloom, and it pulled us further and further into the forest. Eventually, we ended up in front of our own sleeping body, which was still closed. This means that this entire time, from the moment we met Lilia and before we got naked, we were actually asleep. And Lilia interacted with us through our dream. Then, without explanation, the world fades to black, and after a while, we hear Lilia's voice. At first, we hear Lilia going through all the conversations which we just had, but then she tells us that within her forest, when the living dream, spirits awake. And then, after some references to the Awakened cinematic, we actually wake up.
Okay.
After
That's
that,
crazy.
Lilia tries to explain what happened. Apparently, she was the one who accidentally put us to sleep using her smoking staff. At least, that's what Lilia dreamed about. She then asked if we remember what we dreamed about. Because even though this might sound confusing, she had
does.
the option to show us our own dream. But when she did that, things suddenly started making
Sound like
sense.
some Inception
We
shit
were now
right now.
standing in a beautiful blooming forest. Because that's what grew from the seed, which we planted with our own dream. In other
Nice.
words, when in the dream our staff started blooming, after which we woke up, the dream didn't end, it kept going. And now the blooming branch spread into a blooming forest. After that, Lilia tells us that she realized she had to let go of her past dreams. The more she held onto them, the more they turned into nightmares. But now that she let go, she could finally see how beautiful all the dreams that moved on were. At the end of this story, you have the option to point out that the two of you technically dreamed about each other, which makes Lilia engage the ultimate blush, and then she just runs away.
That's funny.
And finally, this takes us to the last two stories, the ones about the two ancient brothers. So, let's start with Yasuo. When you first meet Yasuo, aka the legendary younger brother, you hear the sound of a demon. Here you have the option to face it, run, or force yourself to faint. If you do that, you actually faint, and you don't get to see Yasuo killing the demon. After that, the new reveals start pouring in. When you tell Yasuo that you are not a demon, that you are just a
Yasuo looks
person,
epic.
he replies that all
does.
demons start as people, but they were just wrecked with longing. Then, because these woods were filled with demons, Yasuo decided to leave, and you followed him. On our way, we hear a flute playing, and we find a stone pillar that had a poem inscribed into it. Brothers turned to blades, speak only through clashing steel, hearts bound and silenced. Then we catch up with Yasuo. and he immediately asks us if we liked his music. Once we tell him that it was good, he answers that he's used to being lonely, since in the spirit realm he doesn't have too many people to play to. Right after that, Yasuo introduces himself as the spirit of heroism. He's defined by daring deeds, feats of bravery, and standing for what's right against all odds. He then jokes that if he was any better with his flute, perhaps he could have been the spirit of melody, or something like that. Interestingly enough, then we get another cool reveal. When we ask him why can't he be both, by which we mean the spirit of heroism and melody, he tells us that even the spirits follow certain rules, and apparently his soul was more attuned to fighting than music. Back in Kindred's storyline, they also mentioned that all spirits follow certain rules, because that's simply how things were in the spirit realm, but we don't get to learn what makes these rules. Anyway, then Yasuo quickly explained his story, which we already know because on this channel, we talked about the legend of the two brothers a lot. In short, him and his brother came from a long line of swordsmen, so to him, music was just a nice distraction when the battles were over. Then, for a moment, Yasuo dreads the fact that perhaps if he chose the flute instead of the sword, he and his brother would be still alive. As a nice touch, Yasuo also mentions that after all, the wolf is always waiting to make a meal of us. Which means that perhaps the old clan of the two brothers revered the wolf since they were all warriors. But then he notices that we don't have the marks of the wolf on us, so perhaps we were still alive. This meant that even though it was too late for Yasuo, we were still free to live our life to its fullest. That's why Yasuo asked us what we would like to do, and no matter what you reply, or how crazy the answer is, Yasuo fully supports you. Then he just leaves, and he lets you do whatever you wanted to do. The next time we return to him, he asks us how did it go with our life goals. But this time, no matter what you tell him, Yasuo becomes sad that he wasn't a better musician. And he...
I wanted to make a quick note and like not talk over too much. It's interesting because I know this is like far before Still Here, but I can't help but think about that Still Here scene where like the wolf's in the sky, and then you have the fox like shooting the arrow, and then he kind of accepts his death and gets taken by. You know, that whole part. I'm like sitting here thinking about this. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Because again, they're not the same characters. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I can't help it. It's like, damn, that kind of goes against. It kind of goes into what he's saying here. So, just interesting, very interesting stuff. I almost feel like this Spirit Blossom shit's just messing me up. You know what I mean? I'm almost like, at least I know why, you know, people gave us so many different mixed answers now, but like, it's kind of just fucking up all my lore knowledge a little bit, because like, it's...
Just think about it just way, way, way in the future. That's it.
Right. Shit.
Just think about it like that.
Can't even think about it like that. I can't.
Because time works differently, like they said, so... Technically, they could have already been in there.
See this? That's what I'm saying. It's like because they showed Yasuo as an old man, and then he dies. So it's like it could be way in the future.
Yeah, we don't know.
But then they're gonna drop something later, and it's gonna fuck me up. You know, it's gonna completely counter that. Yeah, craziness, man.
Well, up until then, try to retain your knowledge and hold yourself together for this whole deal, and we'll get through this. We'll be fine. Yeah.
He explains that the musical arts weren't really appreciated in a warrior family. On top of that, his brother was mad he didn't train with the sword more. And here, he calls his relationship with his brother stained. Although they were best bros when they were young. In fact, while Yasuo was playing the flute, his brother was writing poems, and they were encouraging each other. Then, because Yone, aka the elder brother, was the firstborn, he had to endure a lot of pressure from his clan. That's why, to him, honor was always above all, and he never stopped training with his sword. And when Yasuo grew up, and it was time for him to pick up the sword as well, he had mixed feelings about it. Even though, from the first moment Yasuo picked up his blade, his talents were natural. And so, despite his lack of training, he still became better than his brother. And that naturally made Yone train even harder. Eventually, Yone told Yasuo, talent without focus brings dishonor. After which, the two brothers went separate ways, becoming regional lords like their forefathers had planned. From there, the rivalry only grew. Until the day the two brothers met on the battlefield. Here, when we ask Yasuo why did they fight, he doesn't tell us anything, because it was getting dark, and so he offered to make camp. The next day he would guide us to the lands of the Kanmei, where Ari was. Which, by the way, this isn't explained anywhere, but the spirits are divided into the Arcana, which Cassiopeia explained can be translated as demons, and the Kanmei, which Yasuo explained stands for benevolent spirits. But I assume that the lands of the Arcana are on the left of the map, because that's where we are now, and the lands of the Kanmei were on the right. That's where Ari was. The next day we are woken up by Yasuo's flute, and we immediately get on the road. Unfortunately, Yasuo isn't sure which way to go, and so we first end up in Lilia's forest. And Yasuo even recognizes these woods as a spiritual reflection of a place he knew in the physical realm. He also points out things we learned from Lilia, such as the fact that this forest contains the spirits of all living things, including animals and plants, and that all of them were lost to obsession and madness here. However, it was also possible that the spirits were gone, and they might have been destroyed, and if that happened, Yasuo would likely meet them again. Here we got yet another reveal. Yasuo tells us that the spirits of the living can be destroyed by demons, because demons feed on negative emotions, while the most powerful demons feed on the most immoral. However, most demons can be destroyed too, though Yasuo revealed it's not exactly easy. And he even mentions that we probably know about this, as we are likely familiar with the poem of the 10 Great Kings. And with this, he is referring to the 10 kings, which Fiddlesticks mentioned.
Fiddlesticks and of men, Fiddlesticks, first of 10.
The reason why this is really cool is because when you realize that this younger brother came from the ancient legend, and he comes from times before there ever was a conflict, it reveals how incredibly ancient Fiddlesticks has to be, since even at the beginning of human civilizations, people knew about this poem. Unfortunately, we don't get to learn what the poem of the 10 Great Kings says. However, from context, we can assume it mentions how the demons can be destroyed. Anyway, once we tell Yasuo that we don't know what the poem says, he just mocks us by saying that this was more
So yeah, you think that? Yeah.
Damn.
Interesting. We're gonna have to do a deep dive into just the demons of Runeterra. I've actually looked at that, the Darkins of Runeterra, and a video on that, but then also just the demons. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
We'll probably try to. We have such a long list of videos, by the way. We still got to do Ornn because we did Volibear. We still got to do. I just have a lot of League videos thrown on this list. Same as Warhammer, same as a couple of other things. As there's just so many things to get to. So many voice lines still we're gonna do. So we promise we're still making our way through this list. Summer has gotten our videos a little bit more spread out because everyone's schedules are so chaotic and a bunch of trips, a bunch of this and that, work stuff. So yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Slowly but surely.
From context, we can assume it mentions how the demons can be destroyed. Anyway, once we tell Yasuo that we don't know what the poem says, he just mocks us by saying that this was more popular during his time. After some more traveling, we finally arrive at the Fox's Shrine. Here Yasuo just tells us to follow the path, but before he leaves, he tells us that when he arrived in the spirit realm, he saw a path laid out before him. He followed the fox. But midway through, he thought he saw his brother, guided by the lantern. However, he ignored him and he continued following the path. Then, once he reached the end of this path, he realized he was at the beginning again. He was stuck in a loop. Ever since that, he's been looking for his brother. Here he quickly mentioned that in their final battle, the two brothers killed each other. So perhaps Ionia was right when he once told him that two brothers can speak only through clashing steel. But then, we realize that we have read those exact words on the stone pillar at the beginning of the story, and so we sprint back to that pillar. When we arrive there, Yasuo reads the full poem. Brothers turn to blade, speak only through clashing steel, hearts bound and silenced, pierced, run through, they bleed, perishing by others' hand, truths left unspoken, mournful winds sweep through, carrying from better times, echoes of flute song, simple melody, sweet notes traversing death's veil, conjures what once was. Before mortal wars, before pride, duty, honor, there were two brothers, and that was enough. Of course, Yasuo recognizes his brother's words, and so he knows these were written here by Yone. He had spent years thinking about what he would say to Yone, but he never stopped to think what would Yone say back. In fact, all of these years, Yasuo thought he could only get redemption through his sword, but Yone's words have done what slaying countless horrors could not. And so, Yasuo was happy now, knowing that his brother had forgiven him. After this, he took us to the beginning, where he told us to follow our path, while he would go out and try to find Yone. With that, as he plays his flute for the last time for us, he simply disappears. And this takes us to the last Spirit Blossom story, the story of Yone, where things start getting really cool. We first meet Yone in a quiet glade, after endlessly wandering around, and he immediately tells us that we do not belong here. He knows this because he had hunted dark spirits and demons, and we were neither. He then introduces himself as Yone, but you know, we know he's really the elder brother.
Definitely.
Here we get to see that, just like Yasuo explained, Yone likes to talk in poems. In fact, he randomly spews out poems every time he thinks about his younger brother. Then he tells us that the Asakana prowl around, and suddenly one of them jumps out. Yeah, remember how Timo wanted to prank the spirit by putting on Kindred's cloak and pretending to be a demon? Yeah, we get to see that from the other side. And just like Timo said, for a moment Yone actually believed that this was a real demon. But then, as Timo tries to be scary, it becomes obvious that this is just a prank. However, here comes the cool part. Since we are supposed to be helping Timo with the prank, how is it possible that we are just watching ourselves helping Timo? Well, we don't really learn why or how this is happening. But this weird timeline hopping will be referenced often during Yone's story. So yes, this is the first time we actually encounter a different version of ourselves. If we don't count the fact that before, we helped Timo prank Thresh, only to get ourselves pranked. Anyway, once it is obvious that this is not an Asakana, Timo jumps out and he laughs at us, and then he runs away. You then have the option to point out that this demon seemed familiar. This makes Yone reveal how much he hates Timo. But then he stops, unsure if we meant the person Timo was sitting on, because that person did seem familiar. And that's, of course, because that person was us from another timeline. After that, Yone curses himself for being so dumb as to fall for this prank, which he followed by another random poem. Patience, discipline, lessons I try to impart, yet I am the student. He then reveals that he is just trying to save others who would be in danger, but he keeps failing. Here he was known as the Spirit of Reflection. He was defined by his lonely path and hunting down Asakana, even though he wasn't sure what the point of it was. He doesn't know who he is saving, who he is defending, and why he must do it alone. After this, Yone mentions his younger brother. He was a great swordsman who liked to play the flute. But ultimately, it was Yone who pushed him to focus on the sword. Perhaps if he hadn't done that, things would have been better. Then Yone goes through the exact same story Yasuo explained. How the two became lords who eventually turned against each other. But the more he doubted himself, the more Yone turned into a demon. Yone in his demonic form then runs into the mountains, and we follow him. There he transforms back. Once we tell him what happened, he is sad that even here in the spirit realm he can't find peace. And he thanks us for being so brave as to follow him. He then explains that what we saw was his Asakana trying to get him. Apparently, when he first arrived in his realm, he was attacked by an Asakana, which he tried to describe as lingering doubts of one's past. And he adds that the word Asakana means little demon. Once these Asakana feed on enough dark emotions, they turn into Akana, or demon. So now since we know that Asakana means little demon, while Akana is just a demon, that means that the prefix Asa means little. Perhaps we should remember this for the future. But the awesome thing is that after this, Yone tells us that long before the others, there were 10 Akana that were unlike the other. But apparently that story is too long, so he wanted to save it for another time. Of course, by these 10 unusual Akana, he was referencing the 10 great kings, which we have heard about before. This confirms that Fiddlesticks isn't just any kind of a demon. He is one of the first to ever exist, which makes it scary because one of his quotes hints that he was also able to devour the others. Then Yasuo reveals that the reason why he turned into a demon for a moment was because this happens when he loses himself to his own doubts. After which Yone became mad at himself for almost killing us, by not making peace with his past. Then he spews out another poem, before telling us that he's been searching for his brother the entire time. This makes him even sadder, and so Yone just leaves us, and he starts looking for Yasuo alone. After walking for what the story described felt like 1,000 years, we meet Yone again. But as we speak to him, the story reveals that we have actually gone through the other storylines while we were gone in this one. So when Yone looks into our eyes, and he asks us if we have met his brother, we have the option to say yes. At this point, I should mention that throughout Yone's story, you have the option to use modern slangs. But because Yone is quite terrible at reading sarcasm, and he doesn't know what these modern terms mean, he always takes it literally, which turns into quite hilarious scenes, such as the one where Yone hoped he too could be dope as hell. Anyway, the reason why I'm saying this is because we have the option to tell him that we have met his brother. He did a sweet kickflip, and he high-fived gold. After which Yone immediately wants to know, what is a kickflip, what is a high five, and which god were we referring to? Anyway, to Yone, this confirmed that not only did Yasuo's skills become even greater, it also confirmed that Yasuo was here, and so there was a chance to find him. After that, Yone gave us even more context as to why the two brothers fought in the past. It was because while they were lords, Yone branded his brother as a traitor, just so he could face him in combat. So technically, it was the elder brother who started it all. That's why Yone now thought that his brother had to hate him, and that he would probably never forgive him. However, with some careful convincing, we make Yone try to find Yasuo and attempt to get his forgiveness. And so, we lead Yone back to the beach where it all started.
Nice.
At first, he's not sure what he should tell his brother, so we suggest a poem, which is an idea Yone liked a lot. And so, he pulled out his sword, and he started carving a poem into the stone pillar. In fact, he had carved the exact same poem we had found during Yasuo's story. And the story even points out that somehow we feel like we have read this poem before, but perhaps it was just a dream. Which is yet another hint that in the Spirit Blossom realm, we are somehow time skipping. After this, Yone is grateful that we helped him talk to his brother, even though it wasn't directly. Then he asks us if there is anything he could do for us in return. And here, believe it or not, you have the option to ask Yone to kiss you on the mouth. Which he does.
What?
Sort of.
What?
He kisses us on the cheek, telling us that the cheek is the mouth of the soul. Maybe. After this, the two of you sit on
That's
the
a
beach
crazy line.
and enjoy each other's
That's a good
company.
excuse. I'm gonna use that.
The end. And that was the
Why are they
full
kissing
story
everybody
of the
in this
entire
thing?
Spirit Blossom
Hey, man.
event.
Crazy.
However, the day
Sexuality
I'm
is
going
a
to release
thing
this
of the
video,
past back then.
the
It's
a
event
social
will end,
construct.
and we will get extra cutscenes based on who you gave the Spirit titles to. On top of that, even though these stories were supposed to be about us finding way back to the mortal realm, none of the spirits actually helped us do that. At best, they only
Yeah, I was
helped us
wondering,
find the
like-
right direction. But the reveal of how we actually get back should come at the very end of the event. Hello there, I am from the future that has witnessed the ending. So, Ari revealed that we can get back to the physical realm with the help of the giant spirit tree that was in the middle the entire time. We still don't get any details though. And depending on who you have given the spirit petals to, the characters will now come to you and say their goodbye. Unfortunately, we don't learn anything cool from them. Although, for example, Teemo has a really cool reference to the skin's bio. According to the bio, Spirit Blossom Teemo always dreamed of becoming golden. Because, you know, that's a stupid dream and he can troll people with it. However, to get rid of Teemo, Ari actually decides to make
wow.
Teemo golden. And that's the lore behind his prestige skin.
Made of solid
But
gold.
that's all we learned. So, all that's left to say now is...
Ah, jeez.
He would do that at the end.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Daddy number 2. I see now I got my answers. Okay, that was
Very interesting.
yeah, very interesting. All right, I'll say that. It's a lot of I don't know what to say. I do see that you guys did post comments, so Liqiyye. 3611. I always see your posts. Shout out to you, YouTube membership member. So you are appreciated.
Yes.
But yeah, I see a lot of good info, and it kind of essentially was saying what I had said in the middle,
right?
About just these aren't like
Being
the actual
confused.
characters, and you know what I mean. These are like spirit blossoms, so it's important to remember. And even in the wording here, right? It's important to know most of these are myths, and certain things shouldn't be taken literally. So some of them are, some of them aren't. You don't really know. So it's one of those things. Is just like maybe in time they'll give more lore to this to clear it up a little bit more. But just I'm gonna act like this shit's all myths until I kind of, you know what I mean? Until something like very, very concrete says like, hey, this is fact. This isn't actually a myth, And then Johann Stenfeld 1206.
Johann.
Yeah, he said couldn't said it better myself, and I see him always commenting. I think he commented down below as well.
Nice.
Look forward to part 2. Well, here you go, man, and or woman. That's a social construct. Don't worry about that. Shaman King. I've seen that on Netflix. I haven't actually watched it. Jun Wee.
Oh, I've seen
I
bits
Trust.
of it. Yeah, like the
I
first
trust
episode,
nobody.
and then something happened, and I didn't watch the rest of the series.
Yeah, I honestly watched the first episode too, and then, yeah, I don't know. This one was the first anime besides Naruto that I watched as a kid. Damn. So you're not talking about the new Netflix remake then? You're talking about a different version of Shaman King? And I think I did see one on Crunchyroll, actually, because I remember I was looking for it, because I think Netflix removed it for a while, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're talking about the older one, or you're talking about the new Netflix one? Yeah, I'll be interested to look into that again. I don't know if it was, I just couldn't tell if it was like react worthy, because I stopped watching it and I was like, I'll get back to it, and I never did. But I'm definitely going to look into that now.
Yeah.
May 30th is supposed to be a big update. Hold on. Teal Fumin. I forgot. She told me how to say that name. And I don't know if I'm saying that right. Teal, I think. Fuck it. You can reiterate if you want in this video how to say that name. 'Cause you're too consistent and everything on the Discord and everything. So I'll lock it in this time. I'm just fucking up. She's great though. She posts a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
You're a valued member of the community. Mm-hmm. And then Zerata 00. Yeah, I saw that you have had the Thresh Blossom Skin thumbnail. As soon as you said that in your message, I was like, oh shit, I've seen so many of these comments. And you can click and you can see like how many times people have posted and stuff, like commented and whatnot. And yeah, you've commented on a lot of videos. You know what I mean? I've definitely responded to a lot of different stuff. So shout out to you. And I appreciate your comments at the end too, because we enjoy talking about all this good stuff in more time, especially at this point now that we have a bunch of information.
Yeah.
I think it just makes it a lot more interesting to kind of be able to pick apart things and just give our opinion, especially having other knowledge as far as Warhammer stuff, being able to compare the two, knowing the inner workings of like how the writers went from one area to another. And the more we're learning about that stuff, hopefully we can get to a point, like I said, where we're doing like more vlogs and we're traveling around and kind of showing some of our process of making comic books, of filmmaking, conventions, stuff like that. Meeting some of the voice actors at conventions, and like, you know, we've met like Power Rangers and had like walk-ins with like different random people and things like that. So hopefully we can start, you know, maybe move over into that Riot area, figure out how we can get to like Worlds 24 or something like that, and do vlog stuff in that field as well, and just keep growing this channel to something a lot bigger. So yeah, shout out to you. As of now, which is, this hasn't even been out for 24 hours, part 1. Those are the comments, so I appreciate you guys. And yeah, that's all I got for this video. It's confusing Spirit Blossom myth.
I enjoyed the whole stories and what they had portrayed and all the people that kind of represented themselves in the spirit realm of the Blossom. It's pretty cool. I like it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool too. I thought it was like just a nicer, lighthearted, wholesome version of everything. Because the fact that they still kind of have, even though these aren't the characters based off of myths, the fact that they still kind of follow some of like the conflicts of the actual people, you know, real life characters, they feel like they had more resolution to them. You know what I mean? Like Ionia and Yasuo's story, I feel like is still kind of going in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of these had like conclusions to like they met back up at the end, and it's like, okay, cool, that's cool to see that actually play out. Thresh seemed like he wasn't, you know, he actually reached that status of being that god, or you know, the ruler of this realm and all this good stuff. So now he actually has purpose, and you know, so everyone just seemed to, Teemo's just out here doing what he wants. You know what I mean? So very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. Hill will post so many different things. Like I'll go through it and always read. Yeah, I always read the different things. But then I always skip replying to everyone. But I thought it was interesting. Kata and Garen are not married in the present. They're just married in the spirit realm. Which, yeah, a lot of like again, taking his myth kind of clears up a lot of those things. Peasants, hilarious. Yeah, May 30th. I'll be looking for that bigger update as well. Yeah, we'll be looking for that. So I think. Oh, you leave on the 30th, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the day you leave.
Yep, I'll be gone again.
Be gone on another trip, man. Cruising around the world. Yeah, but that's all we have for you today. We appreciate you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
We are very close to 10,000 subscribers. I think we only have like 150 or something like that. So we're very close. I really want to try to do some type of. We'll be dropping a vlog for sure about our Warhammer, creating our first miniatures and painting them and all that good stuff. Traveling down to the Warhammer store, so we'll definitely be doing that. Mm-hmm. And then I want to try to do something else. Maybe we'll try to do like our very first live stream. I don't know what we would live stream, but maybe we'll try to do that and hop on live, and that way people can ask questions and things like that. So we'll set up a date and everything. Maybe I'll post in the Discord. Maybe we'll put in a video. I'll put in a couple different places so everyone knows. I'll definitely post for the YouTube membership members up there. Definitely Discord and definitely Patreon to make sure like the main people are kind of get first access and stuff like that, or not main people, but the day one supporters and the deeper supporters, get that first access. So yeah. All right, y'all.
Thank you guys very much for watching this whole video with us, and until then, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.